I need screen share access. Just a minute, guys. Okay, I got the access. Yeah. Are you guys able to see my screen?
Yes.
Oh, great. Yeah. Fine. So this is what we discussed in all our sessions, right? About the course content that is available in the link. You can go and check this link. This is live. You can go and see our course content and examples from this link. Okay. So this will regularly updated here. And we are going to cover Spring Framework, Boot microservices along with Hibernate also. We'll cover Hibernate. And I'll give you 2 complete projects end to end using Spring Framework and Spring Boot as well. And the same thing we can convert into microservices. Okay, so that was the planning. So in Java, we discussed we have open source libraries like servlets and EJBs for making web applications and enterprise applications. We understand the problems with or the difficulties with the library which Sun given or Artil provided. Okay, so we have some dependencies while doing implementation servlets or EJBs, like container dependencies we have, and a lot of design patterns that we need to design on our own while doing the implementation. So best practices we need to follow for doing this implementation. So to avoid that, there are many frameworks came into the market with many best practices. So one of them is the Struts and the JSP. They are alternative to servlets. On top of servlets only they implemented. They are specially for web applications, not for the enterprise level applications. For enterprise level applications, as I said, EJBs we need to use. So alternative to EJBs, entity beans, Hibernate came into the market. It's a ORM tool. Entity beans also ORM. And instead of using session beans, we can use Spring features. Session beans are really not required. We understand that for distributed application, instead of using session beans, we can go with web services implementations. So web services will allow us to deploy applications into multiple servers, and we can able to manage easily. Nowadays, we are calling it as microservices. We are deploying each service into one separate server, and we are making call between them. So using Spring Boot also we can do that. Spring Boot, web services, that too for RPC style, SOAP style, or REST style. There are many styles and many API providers also we have for doing that implementation. And yeah, we thought about application, how the application architectures used to be when it is the enterprise application. Instead of putting the complete code in a single application, what we used to do, we used to divide it into a separate module and we develop it as a separate application by involving multiple teams so that parallelly that applications can be developed and easily manageable, and performance also we can achieve because they are deployed into multiple servers. So this is how in real-time enterprise applications used to develop and managed. And here we thought about the code logical separation. Generally, when we implement a code, instead of putting everything together in a single class or a single, function, what we do, we divide code into multiple layers for easy maintainability, right? Logical separations we do for reusability and readability, right? And this is the most important pattern that we follow for code logical separations. So we maintain separate views, separate controller classes for doing read data, validate data from views. And once reading from the controllers, we send it to business layer. Business will send to DAO. DAO will do CRUD operations on database. So this MVC based applications we used to develop by using JSP servlets and EJBs earlier. When we Java introduced, they came up with these libraries. But the difficulties with these libraries is while using EJBs, you need to use EJB containers like WebLogic, WebSphere, JBoss. So it's, as we thought, it's difficult for a small scale application, for developing and maintenance and the licensing also, right? We need to pay a lot for these application server vendors. So then we thought of the open source frameworks. So again, servlets, these frameworks came, and these frameworks can support up to controller layer, view layer, and controller layer. And for backend other implementations like business and DAOs, we can go with web services or Java. And here, instead of using EJB entity beans, we can go with Hibernate, a open source library. And when it comes to Spring, Spring is having multiple modules. The same thing if you want to implement in the Spring, view layer, controller, and model layer. In Spring, we have support. Using Spring tag library views, we can develop, and using Spring MVC security, we can manage controller part, and we can use Spring Core, Spring OOP, Spring transactions. Okay, all that modules for service layer implementations. And for database DAO implementation, we can go with Spring Jdbc, Spring Hibernate, or JPA. We have Spring Data in Spring Boot. So that's a simple one. Basically, we don't write code there. Automatically, code will be implemented by Spring. So that's no code technique that we will learn in Spring Boot. So finally, what we understand is to run all these classes, to run your Spring classes, whichever you implemented for your controllers and services, DO classes. All these classes you can finally run on Spring containers. So Spring containers are simple Java classes only. We can use them to run complete MVC application. Okay. And to start this, we use basically Tomcat. So while implementing Spring framework, while using Spring framework, we use external Tomcat. While using Spring framework, we use external Tomcat. But while using Spring Boot came up with embedded Tomcat. The same Tomcat we can use for microservices implementations. The embedded Tomcat we can use. So at least the embedded one or the external Tomcat, one web server is required to start the application, so that the web server will start your Spring containers. Spring containers will manage all other classes. Whatever implementations you have, all that classes will be managed. Okay. So this is the order we thought. We start with Spring Core, then Spring Jdbc, Hibernate, then Spring integration with Hibernate and JPA, Spring AOP, transactions, MVC, and security. Okay. And yeah, as part of Spring Core, first topic that we need to cover is Spring self containers. Okay, this is the first topic that we started with. Okay, so out of Spring Core module is having containers also. Spring Core module is having containers. Again, right, while I'm talking about modules means nothing but jar files only. Okay, for Spring Core, they given Spring Core jar file and context jar file. Okay, Spring library provided with the Spring Core jar file and Spring context jar file. Just you need to download these jar files and you need to keep it in your application. Okay, so these jar files are having multiple packages and many classes. Each jar, right, will have multiple packages and classes. Multiple packages, many packages, and classes. Many packages and classes and interfaces, enums, many implementations they have given as part of their library. So we just need to include that libraries. Okay, we just need to include that libraries for our application. We just need to include these libraries for our application so that we can able to use their implementations, their existing implementation classes. We can use to easy the application development, to easy our application development. We can use their jar files. Okay, any framework, right? You call any framework in Java, that framework's given as jar files only. As a jar files, the frameworks will come. So as part of that jar files, you can find many packages and many classes and interfaces. So as part of Spring Core, these two are the important jar files. These two are the important jar files. Then you can ask me who developed this. Okay, who developed the Spring? Spring development is now from Pivotal organization. Okay, organization name called Pivotal organization, and Red Hat also. Red Hat Pivotal are providing implementations for Spring. They have team. That team is doing the implementation of the Spring framework. Okay, that team is providing implementation for your Spring framework. They are providing the implementations. Okay, they are giving the latest updates. They are giving the latest updates for your framework, and they given it as a open source. There is no license for Spring. Okay, they released it as open source. Open source means you need not to buy. You can use them. Okay, there is no such license to use this Spring framework. Okay, so as part of Spring Core, we started with it's self-containers. We need to learn this first, because when you implement an application, right? In general, when you implement an application in servlets, or consider this, you implemented in servlets, or you implemented it in Struts framework, or you implemented it in any other framework like JSP. Okay, any MVC library or MVC framework you are using here, finally you are going to run all your classes in Tomcat. Okay, finally you are going to run all your classes on Tomcat only. But when it comes to Spring, whatever classes you implement, right? All that classes you are going to run on Spring container first. All your classes you are going to run on Spring container. In Spring, we have application context. It's a container class. Okay, we run all our classes on Spring container instead of running on a additional or external Tomcat like server. Okay, we design all our classes. In Spring, right? We design all our classes and we configure that classes in XML file. Finally, we run it on IOC container. So how to use this IOC container and how to difference between Spring container and web containers, please? Yeah, there are many. Yeah, basically when we call web container, right? Web container is having feature like, yeah, let us talk about the container as you asked here, right? The containers, we need to talk about the Tomcat like container first. So what Tomcat will do, as we talked in our earlier session, Tomcat will read client request from browser, and finally it will provide the response. Basically, web servers will do what? If you implement a web application, and if you deploy it in Tomcat, how web application works? You need to have a browser, and from browser you can call your web application. If you deploy your web app here, in a web server like Tomcat, the Tomcat responsibility is it need to create objects for all these classes, whatever classes we have, A, B, C, D classes. And apart from that, your Tomcat need to manage all these classes. Apart from that, it need to handle the request and response, which is coming from the view from browser, right? When somebody requests your server sometimes might need to redirect some pages here. Okay, some pages response page you need to give as a response. Page loading, right? Page loading. You need to load welcome pages. First thing, welcome page will load. www.google.com. If you enter, what will happen? A Google landing page we will get, or Facebook landing page we will get. So first, servers will give welcome page. Okay, welcome page they will provide. they'll provide welcome pages. Let me write it on here. Okay, first Tomcat container will do what? When you deploy application, it will load welcome page. Anyway, internally it will create your objects. And from welcome page, what we do, we might put some logging or we click some links to redirect to dashboard. So maybe we will have a login page. So from login page, we enter username, password here. And when we submit this data, this data need to be read by Tomcat container. So when you click some data from login page or registration page, your web server need to do what? It need to read data, and later it need to response. It need to give response to request. Read data through request, and finally it need to send the response. These operations also it need to handle. Apart from this, what your container will manage, in case if you do login, it will maintain session for you. If you log in as a like Naveen, it will maintain that Naveen session. Considered if you log into your Gmail, once, if you log into Gmail, it will continue session until you log out here. Unless you log out, your data only it will maintain here. It will not ask username, password again and again, because internal it is having session management. So session management also it have session management. Who do this? Your container only will do session management. Apart from this, there are many other features also containers will have based on the container that you choose. If it is a Tomcat, these are the basic responsibilities. Tomcat will take care session management, request data. From request, you can able to read data. Once after reading data, you can send response. Okay, response data also it will forward. Then your browser will render the data in view so that you can read the data, you can view the data. Okay, so those are the basic jobs Tomcat container will do. Tomcat container first it will maintain your servlet objects, ABCD objects it will create, and their life cycles also it will manage. Init method, destroy method, if you're already aware of servlets. Okay, once after that, it will give you a welcome page. From welcome page, you can do registration or login. When you submit the data you can read here. Who will provide you that data? Tomcat only. Tomcat is a bridge between you and browser. So this bridge will do what? It will provide data to you. And if you send some response, that response also, it will send it to the respective browser only. If I send some data from here, the response also I need to get instead of getting by other user. Instead of giving response to the other users. If I open my Gmail and if I log in, it need to give my data, not other users' data. So the particular session also it will maintain. Okay, and it will remember all the browsers. If I submit the data from this browser, it will remember my browser IP address and my browser information, location, everything. Then when application send response, Tomcat container will take care to which browser the response need to be sent. All that will be managed by your container. Okay, so those are the typical container Tomcat container will do. But when it comes to your Spring container, right? Spring container responsibility is it will manage all controller classes, business classes, DO classes. Still, if you want to maintain these sessions, okay, read data from browser and session management, we need to use Tomcat. As I said, right? As I said, your application need to start from Tomcat only. So this Tomcat will help us on this front. So to read data from browser and to send response to the browser, and for session management, Tomcat will help. But you need not to implement any servlets. If it is a general servlet application, you need to implement servlets here. But in Spring, you are not going to implement any servlet. In Spring, you need to write plain Java classes only. A, B, C, D classes you implement. Your plain Java classes. Spring always will recommend you to implement plain Java classes only. POSO classes. Your business or controller logic, or your business logic, or your DO logic. Everything you need to implement in a POSO style only. Plain Java class only. Okay. So you need not to implement or extend any other API, just plain Java classes you need to implement. All these classes you need to configure in your XML file, and you need to load that XML into Bean Factory or application context. These two are Java classes, you know, right? How to call a Java class or how to load Java class into JVM by calling new keyword. When you call new keyword and when you create object, then the object will be created and it will be loaded into heap. Okay, as this is the container, you need to call this container by using new keyword. That's how you start IOC container. If it is a Tomcat container, how we used to start? There is a bin folder, we go to bin folder, and there we have options like start Tomcat, stop Tomcat. Or else Tomcat will provide some view also here. Using that view, we can right click on that application and we can click on start and stop. If it is a Linux, we go to the bin folder and there we start that bin files or shell files. But when it comes to Spring Boot, you are not using any traditional web server here. You are going to use simple Java class as a server. You are going to use simple Java class as a server, either Bean Factory or application context. The main responsibility of these classes is managing these classes and these classes life cycles. So these containers are responsible to create these ABCD classes objects, whatever you implement, right? All that classes objects will be managed by your Bean Factory or application context. Along with that, this Beans life cycles also. This Beans objects, whatever objects or whatever classes you have created, right? That all classes objects and their life cycles. Mainly all your objects it will maintain, and it will maintain life cycles also. Apart from that, there are many other features we have. Okay, I don't want to jump into them, like dependency injection. There are many features we will discuss one by one. Okay, all objects it will create and their life cycles also it will manage. Who will manage? Your container only, not by Tomcat. Tomcat's only responsibility in Spring is just it will read data which is coming from the view, right? If you have views, right? If you implement views, this views data it will take first. It will take first, then it will redirect to your container only. It will send it to you only. You need to handle it. Okay? You are not going to put any special servlet implementations. Anyway, we understand that this Bean Factory or application context are simple Java classes. Okay, first thing you need to know how to start this container, how to start these containers. Okay, there are two containers. Okay, we have right side area, right? Let me put here. We have two containers. One is Bean Factory, and the one is application context. Application context. Mainly we have two types of containers. In real time, we use application context type container. Okay, again, application context, same features we have in web application context also. Okay, for web application, we use that. So we have these two containers, Bean Factory and application context. These two are the containers that we have. So first we need to understand how to start them, how to start. Okay, how to start Bean Factory. Or how to start application context. Okay, how to start them. If it is a Bean Factory, first one I'll show you. First one, Bean Factory. Okay, how to start Bean Factory, I'll show you here. You just need a main method class. First you need to write a main method class, main method class you need to write. Main method class you need to write. Main method class means you need to have public static void. Public static void main string args. You need to have a main method class. Here you need to create this Bean Factory class object. But these two are the interfaces. Okay, even if it is an interface also, we can call it as a class. Which type it is? Interface type. Okay, can we create interface objects in Java directly? Interface will not have any implementations. Can we create object directly to a interface? No.
No.
Yeah. Instead of creating object to this interface, what you need to do? The implementation class object you need to create. So for Bean Factory, we have implementation class. The class name is class path. Okay. Bean XML Bean Factory. We have XML Bean Factory. You need to use XML Bean Factory. This is the implementation for Bean Factory. Whereas for application context, we have an implementation class name called class path XML application context. Class path XML application context. So these are the implementation classes. This is the class which is implemented from application context. XML Bean Factory is the implementation class from Bean Factory. Okay, so we need to create objects for these classes. Okay, that is the first step we need to learn in Spring. We need to understand how to create object for factory classes. Because if you understand how to create object, that means you know how to start the factory. I mean, you know how to start your container. You know how to start your container. Okay, so how to start means just by creating object for your XML Bean Factory or class path XML application context. How to create object? Just by using new keyword. Just you need to use new keyword, then your class name. New class path, new XML Bean Factory. Or new class path XML application context. Application context. That's it. This is how you need to start your container. Just you need to create object. Objects are possible to create for implementation classes only. That's why you need to create object for this implementation classes, not to the interfaces. Okay. Bean Factory implementation is XML Bean Factory. Application context implementation is class path XML application context. Okay. You need to use this class to start your container. Just by using new keyword, you need to create object for your class. That means you are starting your container. Okay. Now tell me here for Bean Factory how to create object. Can I do this in Java? Is it possible to put interface reference equal to implementation object? We can do, right?
Yes.
This is interface. Interface reference is equal to new implementation object, new XML Bean Factory. We can do this, right? This is legal in Java. Interface reference is equal to implementation object. Or else if you are confusing with this, directly put this class name also here. Both are legal. Both are legal. You can put Bean Factory. Bean Factory is the interface, which is parent for this class. So put interface reference is equal to implementation object. This is legal in Java. Into interface reference, you can pass implementation objects. Okay. Try to understand this statement. Interface. This is Bean Factory is an interface. Into this interface, I am passing implementation object. This is legal in Java. Okay. We'll talk about this design pattern later. Why we need to pass implementation objects into interfaces. That is a good concept in Java. We call it as a runtime polymorphism. Okay, we talk about it. That's a great feature also. As because Java allowing us to put interface reference equal to implementation object, I'm using the same style here. Or else I might create this class object, this class reference equal to the same class object I might. Yes, Java allows interface reference equal to implementation object you can put. And here you need to pass your XML file. You need to pass your XML file. You need to pass your Spring XML file. You need to pass your Spring XML file. Okay, what we have in the Spring XML file, we understand how to start this Bean Factory. But while creating this Bean Factory object, I said you need to use new keyword and you need to call this Bean Factory. And in this constructor, I'm giving a file. What is there inside this file? Basically, in this file only we configure all our classes. This file only will contain all your implementations. all your controller classes, your service classes, your DAO classes, your utility classes, whatever you implement, right? All these classes configuration we do in this Spring XML file only. All these classes we configure in Spring XML file only. And finally, we load that Spring XML file into our container class. So that what this container class will do, it will read all the classes. Controller class, it will read, service class, it will read, DO class, and utility class. All the classes which I configured in this XML file, all the classes which I configure in this XML file will be read by your container, because you are giving the file as a input here. So when you give file input internally, this factory class is having a logic. This factory class is having some logic to read your classes. So all your classes will be read by your factory. So this is the first style. This is the first style. Using Bean factory, if you want to do this, you can do this way. Instead of using Bean factory, this is the core container. We call it as core container. Okay, we call it as core container. This is what we call core container. And we have J2EE container also. How to start them? If it is a core container, this is how you start. We have J2EE container also. J2EE container also we have. How to use this J2EE container? Same way. Tell me how to create object. Here I used Bean factory is equal to new XML Bean factory. Bean factory reference equal to new XML Bean factory and given XML file. Now tell me for this one. Are you guys following? For application context, how to create object?
Using new keyword.
Yes, new keyword only. So here the statement, how to write. For core container, I used this statement. Okay, interface reference equal to implementation object I have given. For this J2EE container, what is the statement? Okay, how you will create. Same way, right? Application context, IOC reference is equal to new class path XML application context.
And inside that application context path, we have to mention the class also, dot class. Right.
Application context IOC equal to new class path XML application context. Again, same thing. You need to load your Spring file here. Your Spring XML file. Your Spring XML file you need to pass it. Same way. Your interface reference is equal to implementation object. For both, you need to follow same style.
What if we have more than one XMLs?
You can load any number of XMLs. Good question, right? But you can load any number of XML files here. Okay. N number of XML files can be loaded here.
And sir, what if we have to put the priority on first XML file and second XML? We have to put the priority, sir, in first XML file and then like admin level, user level, that type of things.
Yeah, we will talk about it. Okay, we can put n number of XML files. Okay, you can ask me that while doing this multiple XML files. Okay. Yeah. So we can load any number of XML files, not only single file. And for loading n number of XML files, we have again multiple styles also. You can put all that XML files here, or else you can merge all that XML files configuration into one XML file, and you can load that one XML also. We talk about that. Okay, definitely we'll talk about that later. Okay. But the basic first step, what you need to learn is you need to create a main method class. There you need to create object for your container class, either application context or bean fact. You are clear, right? Till here?
What
Yeah.
is
So
the
this is,
difference between them?
yeah, we
JPW
talk. We will talk about it. Okay. The differences between both the containers we talk. Yeah. So this is the basic step that you need to understand. This is how we create your container class objects, and we need to load XML file. So once we load this XML file here, and when we start, we just need to right click and run as Java application. Then when you run as Java application, if I configure application context, what will happen? If I configure this one first, J2EE container, it will create object for your class path XML application context. While creation of object, it is passing XML file, which means while creating your application context object, internally, what it will do, it will read your XML file. You guys following me, right? When you start a main method, how the execution flow used to happen? First, it will go to this line. When it see the new keyword with constructor, it will try to call that constructor. Is it a default constructor or a parameterized constructor? Class path XML application context is a parameterized or default?
Parameterized.
Parameterized.
What is the parameter here?
Spring XML file.
Correct. For both, we are using Spring XML file as a parameter. So we are giving this XML file to whom? This class constructor. While creating object of my container class, I'm giving XML file as an input parameter. So what internally it will do when you give this XML file input as a parameter to your application context or to your bean factory? Okay. So here we are creating this line. We are adding this line by using new keyword. We are calling this parameterized constructor and giving XML file. So when I pass a XML file into application context AP equal to new class path XML application context. So I need to give into this constructor, I need to give a XML file as a input. When I give this Spring XML file input, which XML file? We are not giving our own XML file. We are giving Spring XML file input. If you pass your own XML files, whatever you create with your own configurations, and if you pass here, that is not accepted. Only Spring XML file is accepted here. Only Spring XML file. You need to give only Spring XML file here. What it will do here, when this try to load XML file into constructor, first it will read XML DTD or schema. Every XML file will have a DTD or a schema. You are trying to load XML file, right? XML file is strictly typed. You know, right? XML is strict file. You cannot put mistakes in XML file. So first it will read your XML file and it will read your DTD and schema. Before that, what it will do? Before reading itself, it will read your XML file and it will see well formed or not. Well formed check. It will check whether he is formed this XML in a correct way or not. Well formedness means what? When you create a XML file will have one root tag. One starting tag and one ending tag, correct? You all agree with this?
Yeah.
So every XML file will have a root tag. First, it will check the root tag. Well-formedness means what? It will check a root tag. In servlets, if you remember, tell me the root tag.
Beans.
In servlets API. In web.xml file, what is the root tag? Web app, correct?
Web.
In servlets, it is web app. Similar way, you start with web app. Finally, you need to close the web app. So this is how you start and you close. And in between, you will have multiple tags. So this is the root tag for web.xml file. Web app is the root tag, means first to tag. So first to start with web app, ending with web app. In servlets, in Spring, this will start with beans. Start with beans tag. Spring XML file will end with beans tag. So bean is the main root tag. Beans is the main root tag. Beans is the main root tag. Okay. So if you open beans tag and if you don't close the beans tag, first line itself, it will throw the error. By saying your XML file is not well formed. Your XML file is not well formed. If you open this line and if you forget to close this, you will see well formed issue. So you need to form your XML file with open tags and closed tags. This is the first thing that you need to do. In between this root tag, this is the root tag in XML, okay? This is the root tag, main root tag in Spring XML file. Above this tag, we don't have any other tags. This is the root tag, main root tag. This is the main root tag in XML file. In between this root tag, there are child tags. The main important child tag is bean. In between bean and bean, there is a child tag name called bean. There is a child name called bean. So this tag also, if you open, you need to close. Tag open here and tag closed here. So you can do this in a two ways. Okay. Bean tag open here and bean tag closed here. Okay. You can do this way. This is one format. You can do instead of closing with a child tag, self-ending tag also you can put. Here I started and here I ended. So this is how also you can put. Both are valid, but this is not valid for main root tag. But for your child tags, this is well. This is correct and this is also correct. Both are true. Okay. So this is how it will check your XML file. First thing, when you load your XML file, it will check whether this tags correctly formed or not. It will check. Apart from that, what it will check is whether these tags are valid for your application or not. Also, it will check. Are these tags really valid for your application or not? Also, it will check. Why? Because instead of using these tags, if you configure your own name as a tag with the well-formedness, I opened my tag and I closed my tag. Does it accept my own tags here?
No.
Yeah, in any XML file, in web.xml file, can you configure your own XML tags?
Yes.
Is it?
No.
Did you tried? Tell me one tag in web.xml file. Which tag you used?
No, we can't use that.
Yeah. Yes or no? Okay. If it is a yes, we will talk about yes later. But I'll say no for now. You can't. You should not configure your own tags here. You should not configure your own tags here. Only predefined tags only you should use. Okay. You should use predefined tags only. If you use your own tags, this tags information your framework doesn't have, so that it will not understand why you configured this. Reason for this tag, maybe your framework will not understand. That's why your own tags are not, you should not use. Okay. Your own tags are not allowed. You should not use your own tags. You need to use existing tags only. How it will know whether this is a framework given tag or your own tag? So when you load your XML file into container, container will check whether you properly started tags, ended tags, that it will do. Apart from that, it will validate your tags also. Second step, it will validate your tags. How it will validate? Validate tags using DTD or schema. Using DTD or schema. In XML file, we configure DTD or a schema. So
Is
using
GTD same as XSD?
no, both are different. Schema we call XSD as schema. Schemas. Okay, DTD or XSD. Doc type definition or schema type definition. XML schema definition. Both are different. DTD is having very limited features, whereas XSD is having many features. In DTD, we can somehow control the tags, somehow control the attributes, but we cannot control the data types in DTD, whereas XSD is having data types support also. This is the XML concept, okay? So you can go through W3 schools or anywhere, there you can easily understand what is the difference between DTD and XSD. Okay, one is recommended in your XML file, either DTD or XSD. You should compulsory configure in your XML file. While configuring your XML file, right? While configuring this XML file, on top of root tag, you need to put DTD here. You need to put DTD here in your file, so that while you're writing these classes, your XML file tags will be validated against DTD. Inside this DTD file only, we put all these tags definitions. So whatever tags there in this DTD, that tags only you can able to use. You cannot use your own tags when you configure a DTD or XSD here. Only the tags which are defined in this DTD only you can able to use. Got it? Why we should not use our custom tags? When you load your XML file first, not only in Spring, even if you see your web services or Tomcat, whatever it is, right? It will not accept all the tags because your XML file will have either DTD or XSD. So based on the DTD or XSD only will validate your tags. So only the predefined tags which are there in DTD only we should use, or which are there in XSD. So first thing, it will validate. It will do well-formed check and validation next. So what is validation means? Whether these tags are correct or not, it will see. Whether this tag, beans tag he used as a root tag, is it true? It will check in this DTD file. And again, he used bean tag as a chain. Is it true? It will check in this DTD file. This is how your XML file will be validated, where all these steps will be happened inside this constructor only. Under your class path XML context to class constructor only, this will happen. Do you know what is this process we call? What is this process name?
Sorry, can you come again?
Validating or reading XMLs. There is a process for the, there is a name for this process, right?
Parsing.
Parsing, correct. So XML parsing, using XML parsers, using XML parsers, your container will do this job. You know, right? How many types of XML parsers we have?
Second DOM.
What is that? Can you please repeat?
SAX and DOM.
SAX
DOM
parser
parser and DOM parsers.
SAX parsers and DOM parsers. Okay. So we have two types of parsings. It will use DOM parsing. When you use DOM is for schema, SAX is for DTD. When you use DTD, SAX parsers, it will use And when you use schema, when you use XSD, right? DOM parsers if you use, or maybe vice versa also we can use. Okay, so by using these parsers, only, your XML file tags will be read in your application. Okay, using parsers, where these parsers are used inside this class path XML application context. There are some parsers like DOM parsers and SAX parsers. Using that parsers only, your XML file will be read and it will be validated. What next? So my XML file is reading and it is validating. What next? Then next actual execution will start. Actual IOC execution will start here. As a third step, what it will do? It will start creating. Objects of all being configured classes. It will start creating objects for all bean config classes. Bean config classes means what? By using bean tag, if you configure any class, by using this bean tag, right? By using this bean tag, as I said, bean tag, this is how you can use, either by using self-ending or by using ending tag. So if you configure any class by using bean tag, right? If you configure any class by using bean tag, consider you have a class. Consider you have a class A. Okay, a simple class A you have, and this class you have configured in XML file. You know, right, how to configure? Tell me what we need to put on top first. Top of the XML file. You guys following me?
DTD, sir.
Yes, correct. So in XML file, first we copy DTD or XSD here. Then next we start with main
tag.
Beans.
Main root tag. So first we need to configure main root tag. Okay, this is the first thing that you need to do. Then next what you need to do?
Child tag.
Now child tag. Child tag name is called bean. Here you need to configure one attribute. Okay, these are tags. Under tags, if you use any property here, we can call it as attribute of this tag. Okay, this is attribute. So bean tag is having one attribute name called class. Okay, in this class attribute values will be assigned by using equal. Attribute class. What you need to configure here? Your class name. So my class name is A. If your class is there in some package
along with package.
Along with package. Consider your class is there in beans package, or your class is there in some web package. Put web.a. Your package name you need to put first, then .a. Package name dot class name. So this is how you need to give your class here. Okay. So this is how you need to configure your A class.
So does container loads creates objects for all the beans in one go, or is it request based?
Will tell you. Okay. Yeah. So keep all these questions. Okay. Keep all these questions with you.
Sir, we can use @auto wiring.
Man, you are going to concept number 20. We have many concepts before that.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, we discuss about all that concepts. Okay. You ask me finally if you don't see all the topics. There are many concepts. Okay. I'm going very basic things. Why I'm going from very basic is, in future, if you thought of creating your own framework, if you understand how they design these existing frameworks, right? You easily understand that, okay, if you want to create your own custom framework, you can design by following the same steps. Okay. So that's why I'm going from very beginning. I don't want to jump into that concept. That is a concept around, 15 or 20th concept. Yes, we have many styles we have. Okay. We go one by one. Up to advanced level, we go from very basic level. Okay. Yeah. So this is how you need to configure your bean classes. Let's say you have one more class, class B, you can configure it. Any number of bean classes are allowed. Any number of bean tags are allowed here in between beans and beans. Okay, I configured one class. This class is there in the package name called, my package name is web. Under this package, I have this class A. Now this class I'm loading, I mean this XML file I'm loading here. Consider you are loading that XML file here. So what it will do, first it will read your XML file. It will check whether these tags are well formed or not. So beans tag opened, beans tag closed, fine. Next thing, it will read your bean tag. And under bean tag, you configured one class attribute. Under that class, you have given one value here. You given your package name dot class name. So what it will do, it will start creating object for all your bean classes. Whatever classes you configured here, right? Under bean, whatever classes you configure, right? It will start creating object for this class. So now A class object it will create. So it will create one object for your A class. A object will be created. A object will be created. How it will create? I'm not using any new keyword. How it is creating then? Do you know without new keyword how we can create any class object? As a framework, how they implemented it? We know XML parsers. Using XML parsers, we can read this class. That is fine. They read our class fine, but how they are creating object? We know up to here, even we can create our own XML file, and using parsers, we can able to read whatever class name we configured here. But how it is creating object? Do anybody have idea how to create object at runtime? If you know something, the class name and package name.
Reflection.
Yes. So we are not using anywhere new keyword. Using new keyword, we are not creating a class object.
Sir, we can in Java we can use class.new instance.
Correct. That is the reflection API. So internally it will create object. How it will create object means this is how. So as I said, it will read your XML file, right? It will read and it will fetch this data. Okay, this data it will fetch. Up to this data it will fetch. Once after fetching this data from your XML file, right? What it will do, it will fetch that value here. It will read the value here. The value it will get string class name. This is the internal thing. Don't confuse, okay? Your class name it will read. What value it will get? Web dot A. Your class name it will read. Who will read? Internally, your container will read. Internally, your container will read your class name. Once after reading class name, how they will create object is they will use class dot for name. There they pass this class name. There they pass this class name. There they are passing this class name. Then dot new instance. Using this new instance, they are creating object of your class. Which class? Your class A. Your A class object they are creating here. Web dot A. This is how your object is created. Basically, it will return directly object. Object is a parent class, so your object will be created and it will stored into a object class reference. So this is how internally your A class object is created. Not only A class. If you configure 1000 classes here, all that 1000 classes objects will be created by using same style. Class dot for name, class dot for name, class dot for name. It will pass all your classes and call new instance. This is the reflection class we have in our Java API only. Class dot for name. By passing your class name here dot new instance, we can create object at runtime. During runtime also we can create object. You all aware of it, right? How many of you are aware of it?
Yep.
Yeah. So if not, try to understand, because this is a framework. They want to create your objects during runtime. This is the framework. They want to create your objects, whatever classes you configured, right? All your classes objects, they want to create it runtime. That's why internally they are using this style, class.forName style, to create your object. Okay. Now let me show you simple core Java application before going into this. Okay, I'll show you simple core Java application to create the object. This is core Java topic. If you are not aware, that is fine. Let's try to understand how to create objects runtime. Okay, objects during runtime in core Java. Use Java 8, Java 9, anything should be fine. Finish. I just created a simple Java project. Let me create a package name here. Beans or web. Any package name, and create one class here, student. One simple class I'm creating, student. Okay, in student I have one method name called public void say hello. So I want to create the student class object to say hello. I want to create the student class object to say hello. Hello everyone. I want to call this method. So how to run this method? You all know, right? We need to have a main method either within the same class or new class. Somewhere you need to have a main method to start with it. Can we call hello method directly here? No, as it is static method, you need to create object for your student class first. Student equal to new student. This is how you will create object. Correct? Once after creation of object, you call your method by using this object. Now when you run it, what will happen? The execution will start from 10th line. So it will create object for student class. Then using that object, you can able to call this hello method. So that the hello method will give hello everyone statement. So you are creating object by using new keyword. Instead of using new keyword, there is another style also. You can use class dot for name. Here you can pass your class. Fully qualified path you need to give. Though it is in the same package also, your main method there in the same package and same class also. You need to give fully qualified path beans dot your class name, because during runtime this will try to read from your package. Okay, so this class will try to read your class, so that you need to give fully qualified path. So class dot for name, in this class dot for name class dot for name will return what? A class object only. It will return a class object. Now using this class object, how to create object for your student class? As this class internally is having student class only, you need to call c dot new instance. When you call c dot new instance, what it will do? It will create object for your student class, but it will return in the form of object class. Can you call by using this object class reference hello method? Object class is not having hello method, so you cannot call. So that what you need to do, as you know, this object is student object, you need to typecast. You need to typecast into student. This is how you need to typecast. From object to type to student type, you need to typecast here. Then you can call student dot say. Throws exception. Don't ask me why we are throwing exception, because these are throwing compile time exceptions. Okay, so this is another way, right? Using this approach also you can create object. Okay, either by using new keyword. New keyword means compile time only you are writing code. Without new keyword, if you want to create, so this is how you can create. This is runtime object creation, not the compile time. See, here also you could able to call your hello method. But now this time, how you are creating using runtime object creation. During runtime, you are creating object here. Similar way, Spring also will do. Similar way, Spring also will do. In Spring, where we are doing this configuration, your class name configuration, you are doing in a XML file. From XML file, it will read and do it. Shall we see this Spring style also one example? Yes. Object creation in runtime using Spring. Object at runtime using Spring library. So if you want to use Spring framework, as I said, you need to add their libraries. The jar files you need to add. Add external jars. Only few jars we need to add. But as I have all these jar files, let me add. Only 3 jar files must be enough. But as I have all, I'm adding it. So I added all the Spring jar files. All frameworks I added. But I'm not going to use them. Create the same way a package here. Like a web package. Inside this web package, I have a class name called A. Create a class A. So this is my class A. So I want to see how this object is creating. So for that one, I'll override default constructor so that whoever calls this, whoever wants to create this class object, right? They will must call this default constructor. They will must call the default constructor. Constructor calling for object creation. Either you create object or use the class dot for name or Spring, whoever, right? They must call the constructor, then only they can able to create object. Otherwise, they cannot. Now you need to configure this class in a XML file. Create a package name called resources, any folder name, okay? Any package name you can take here. And under that package, create a file. Create a file. Spring XML, anything, any name you can put. Spring XML file or Spring configuration file. You put any name with the .xml extension. Create a XML file. And as I said, right, you need to put DTD or XSD here first. You need to put DTD or XSD. So let me copy that. So this is the DTD, doc type definition. So configure this DTD first. This is mandatory. Then you need to start with your root tag. So it is showing how many root tags? Only one root tag. By default, it is suggesting you use beans tag. It is suggesting you. So enter. It automatically provides you beans. Now between bean and bean tag, to create my A class object, between this bean and bean tag, I need to configure a bean tag. Bean with attribute name called class. Here you need to pass your package name dot class name. So whether you configure this class correctly or not, sometimes you mistake here. Some people will create small letter package web, then they will put capital letters here. So it is not allowed. Okay, your class will not be identified. So I'll show you a trick here, whether you implement configured correct class or not, what you need to do. Press Control and hover the mouse here. If you press Control and hover the mouse here, it will be highlighted. If class is available, you can see the right, the underline coming here. It is highlighting. You can able to see, right? The underline coming here. I press the Control key and hovering on it. So if I click on it, automatically your class also will be redirected. So if your class correctly configured or not, if you want to know, press Control and click on it. If it is correctly configured, then it will redirect. If you configure wrong package name here, consider W capital you configure. So you try to press here. No, it will not work. It is not redirect. So just a simple trick that I regularly while doing configurations, I do this, whether I configured correct package name or not. Press Control and hover it and click on it. So this is how you can check whether you configured properly your class or not. Okay. So you configured your bean class in a XML file. Now how you will start your application now? To create the object, how you will start application now? We know, right? We can use either bean factory or application context. This statement we need to write. Under our main method class, we need to put this statement. Where do you want to put main statement? Inside a class you want to put, you can put if you want. Generally, we write a separate class, create a separate package app, and I'll write a separate main method class. Main class. In main class, I'll put a main method, public static void main. So here load your XML file.
Application context.
Yeah, application context. See, I type, just give 1-2 characters, application. So just give 1-2 characters and click Control space. So you will get auto suggestions. Click Control space so that you can see all the classes which are available. Just click on Control space. See, it is showing. So what is your class you required? As I said, interface, right? Application context is a interface. You can see I highlighted here. I means interface, C means class. So select this interface, application context interface. So when you select it, automatically import also will be happened. Instead of that, if you write it, application context, you may use some wrong naming conventions. Application and C is the capital letter. So if you write on your own, import will not happen and you will see error. So instead of that, what you do always, type up to few characters and use Control space. You will see your class name will be available here. When these class names will be available here, as you added all that classes into your library, right? I added all that libraries here. How I added? I went to build path, configure build path, and add external jar files, right? So when you add all that jar files, so all that classes are already there in your class path, in your Eclipse class path, already they are there. So when that is available, you click Control space so that you will see that class. Then select which one you want. Double click on it or enter. So it will automatically import it so that this class is available for you. Then create a reference name. Create any reference name. Application context AP is equal to new class path XML application context. This is the implementation class. Class path XML application context. Class path XML application context. See. So you can see many constructors it have. Class path XML application context with the default constructor, with one parameterized constructor, application context as a parent, string locations, many constructors. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 plus parameterized constructors they have. You can use any style. Basically, I use this style, third one, application context with Spring XML location. I used to pass application XML location here. So path your XML application location. So where is your XML? My XML is there in resources folder. Under resources folder, Spring config XML file. So what you do, copy this resources. Okay. So while configuring class in your XML file, while configuring a class in XML file, how we configured? If it is a class, you need to use package name dot class name. If you are trying to give file input, right? While giving file inputs, you should not use dot. resources dot spring config dot xml you should not use. While giving path of any files, you should not use dot. While giving classes, you need to give dot. Package name dot class name you can give. But when you have files, right, you should not give package name dot file name. Instead, you need to give slash here. Package name slash file name. For files, this is applicable. For files, slash is applicable. For classes, dot is applicable. So this is how you need to load your XML file.
Like directory.
Yeah. So this is your directory. From there, you are reading it. That's it. So you are trying to loading your XML into context. Now I will run it. Run as Java application. See what happened. Log for J, warn no appender could be found logger. Okay. Something it is printing. Okay. So basically what it is trying to print internally is if you configure logs, if you enable log, right, what it will do is it will show the logs also. What is happening internally also it will show you. Okay. Yeah. So somehow it is loading your XML file. It will validate your XML file and then it will start creating objects. See, A class constructor is called for object creation. This output statement we have in A class constructor. Who called this A class constructor? Who called this A class constructor? Your container called. As you configured your class here, when you load your XML file, it is calling internally. Using which approach it is calling? Using this runtime approach. Internally, the same kind of code it will use. It will load your beans web.a class and it will create object. So the same job internally your class path XML application context is doing. At runtime, it is creating your bean class object. Now you must understand, right? Now you must understand how all containers are creating objects, not only Spring container, even if it is a servlet application, when you try to load it on Tomcat container, when you try to load it on Tomcat container, your Tomcat container also will do the same thing. When you try to load your classes on Tomcat also, when you try to load ABCD classes, all the ABCD classes your Tomcat container will read and it will create objects during runtime only. So the same approach every framework will follow. When you implement a framework, right? Framework standard object creation technique is this is. Frameworks internally will create objects by using this technique. Are you guys clear? How it is creating object? This is very basic discussion. Okay. We will go next to discuss about our containers. We have various types of containers. We need to see the differences between them. And as you have multiple questions, right? How to configure if I have multiple XML files. Even in one of our previous demo sessions also I discussed about it. Okay, you can watch that videos. Maybe a week back you can see my demo videos. Okay, if you are curious before our session itself. Okay. But I'll show you one by one. We go to the topics. The same examples, right? This Spring runtime example we have, and this basic object creation using core and J2W also. I have given the link. If you go to Spring core, there you can see the basic object creation at runtime. This is the first example using class.forName. Then you can see these examples, how to use core container, J2W containers. Tomorrow, I'll show you the differences between both the containers. For today, the expectation is you need to understand how this container is working. You must understand from the discussion is right. It will read your XML file. It will read your XML file. Then it will start creating objects. Then it will start creating objects using class.forName approach. So these are the steps that will follow. When you load your XML file, first it will check whether properly tags created or not, and it will validate these tags against your DTD, because as I said, right, custom tags you should not put. Okay, if I put some custom tag, okay, ABCD, a custom tag I configured here. See, immediately it is showing error here. Immediately it is showing one error in XML itself. The content beans, the content element type beans must match description, import, alias, or bean. It is saying you need to have import tag or alias tag or beans tag. Apart from this, you should not use anything else. It is saying these are the tags that are allowed inside beans tag. So here itself it is showing that error. Your beans tag should not have this ABCD tag, it is saying, because your tags are validating against this DTD file. If you open this DTD file, right? Is it open? No. Yeah, basically it is there in your Spring Beans library only. If you want to see the DTD file, I'll show you. As you added Spring libraries, right? There is a Spring Core library. You need to go to that Spring Core jar file. Where it is Spring Core jar file. If you open the Spring Core jar file, there you see XML utils. Or Spring Core. One of this package will have the schema and DTDs. From there, it will read it. In Spring 2 version, I used to find that DTD here, but this version it is not showing to me. Manifest file, does it have DTD such? Somewhere these bundles, somewhere this bundle only we will have. Okay, no worries. We'll see that later. Okay. So that DTDs also you can copy from here, as it will available from your packages only. You can copy it from there.
Are we going to use Maven for our next classes?
Yeah, for few discussions, as the libraries are available, you can use the library dependencies. If you want to use Maven, you can create Maven project also. Create a Maven project. Next.
Sir, you can use the buttons Control Alt G in the package to search DTD.
Alt G for?
Alt, Control Alt G.
Control Alt G for?
To searching any class in the whole package of that JRE.
Okay, where do you want to apply me that?
Means that you are searching in that jar search, no? Yeah.
So let me Control Alt G. Okay, Control Alt G.
You can move to any of the package, open any of the package, and yeah, any of the package you can go. In that package, any of the classes you can go and type there DTD, and you can search for the whole keyword in any class of the package.
Okay. So it's a typical searching only. Okay,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it's the typical searching in
For
fact
packages.
of packages.
Generally, we use Control H.
Control H hierarchy, sir.
Hierarchy.
But
Yeah. Control H and
Control Alt G is for the
L.
whole. Like we use grep for that command prompt to search any package or file. Here also.
Sure. Yeah, we'll start using that. So this is the basic thing I want to cover today to show you how Spring is creating the object. As this is the small thing, but in case if you understand this statement, how at runtime it is creating the objects, it's good for you that you can able to create some minimum frameworks on your own. This is the basic feature that every framework used to have. At runtime, they create objects by using this approach. Tomorrow, one surprise I'll show you, or else I can show you quickly also here. So as you know here, while using class.forName, right? I have a public constructor here. What if I have a private constructor? Using class.forName, I'm trying to create an object. Can it access private constructor? Private means private, right? See, it is able to create. How? Oh, sorry. Come on. Okay, so this is the constructor. So the default constructor is public. So now I'm making it as private. Still it is creating. So for reflection, it is not even caring whether you have private constructor or public constructor. Can you able to create object for private constructor using new keyword?
No, I think.
It is allowing as we are in the same class. I'm surprising why it is creating. Okay. So let's put this main method in a different class. A main method class. Generally, it should not. If it is outside the package or if it is a new class, from there you cannot access. As we are in the same class, it is calling private constructor. Okay. Now, this is a different main class. Here I'm trying to calling student. Student is a different class. There we have private constructor. Okay, not a public constructor. We have private constructor. See, it is not able to access. This main class is a different class. So it is trying to accessing your student class, which is having private constructor. It is saying illegal access exception. Class beans.main cannot access member of class beans.student with the modifier private. It is mentioning private modifier you mentioned for the constructor. I'm unable to access it. Private members are accessible within the class only, not outside the class. So can you create object now like this? Student std is equal to new student. Is it allowed? The constructor student is not visible because it is private. You cannot create object. Is there any way to create object? Do you guys know?
I think singleton bean.
No, I don't want to go with any pattern. Is there any way? Still, it's a private. I can
think
create object.
getter and setter should work.
No. Yes. Yeah, you are saying singleton pattern. That's a trick. We can say it as a trick, right? That's a trick that to get the object of student class from this class itself. There is a getter method. That method should return the same class object so that I can able to use it. I don't want to put anything else. I don't want to put any other line here. As it is, I will leave it. Still, do you know how to create object? Even if your class is having private constructor also, you can create object by setting it to accessible to true. C dot set get declared constructors. Get declared constructor returns elements annotated with fields. So get declared constructors. What it will return? Constructor array it will return. Constructor is a reflection class. So array of constructors, but from array of constructors, I need one constructor only. 0th constructor I want. So I got my 0th constructor, means first constructor. Now what you can do here, constructor dot set accessible, make it true. You need to add this 2 lines statement. These lines, what they will do is, they will make your constructor private to public. What it will do, set accessible flag for the reflected object, indicate that Boolean value, the value true indicates reflected, whatever it is. This method may be used. Access control, it is used with the variation of noted classes. Okay.
But isn't this the violation of what class actually declared?
Yes, it is violation.
Because the class was supposed to be private, the constructor was supposed to be private. So is this these 2 lines required everywhere wherever I want to access the object? So let's say I have a third class. There again I need to write these 2 lines, or it sets the it makes the constructor public everywhere within the same
Everywhere
package.
it will, even if you implement it as a private also, it will make it public.
So even a new class now can access that object.
Yes.
But is it a good practice to do?
So there is a way to access it. If you want to utilize that or not, that's your wish.
Okay.
There is a way to access it. Get constructor, get declared constructor. Get declared constructor. Same thing I used. Constructor array I get. I'm trying to making my one constructor accessible to true, so that you should able to create an instance. Okay, instead of using this, what we do, constructor dot new instance try this. See, hello everyone. You are violating it really. So we have class here with private constructor. Still you access it. I didn't even realize it, this statement before knowing the reflections, right? When I realized this is right. While dealing with Spring, go to Spring first. Let's see example in Spring. In Spring also we have the class A class. Let's make this A class constructor to private. I'm not doing any other changes. I configured my A class here and try to run it. A class object is created. Then I surprised how it is accessing private constructor. So then I realized is, what I realized is there is a loophole. I mean, that is not loophole, intentionally they given to access runtime Java given, right? So you can able to get the declared constructors and you can set them access to true. Then you can create this object. So this is the real approach internally Spring is using. If your constructor is private, they are going with this approach. If it is a public, the first approach is okay. Are you guys having any confusion? It's a basic core Java discussion only. I'm not having even real Spring discussion here. Okay. If you can understand it, you can understand how Spring containers are working. Okay. So this is how internally they are creating the objects by making even private constructors to public. How you can avoid this? If you don't want to allow someone to create your class object, throw some exception here. Throw something, class not supported or not allowed. There are some exceptions, right? Or your custom exception, illegal access.
But this
Class
will
not found exception.
terminate the entire application.
As you said, it will, you cannot able to create object. Even yourself also you cannot able to create object. Even this class itself wants to use this A class object also, it cannot. We need to find a way, but you need to find a way. Otherwise, definitely we are violating.
No, but even in this way, the object would get created, but ultimately exception would be thrown, which would terminate your application.
Correct. Yeah. Anyway, the call is anyway coming up to here. We can't avoid it.
Okay.
Got it?
So is it wise to have constructor every time we declare a bean in a Spring?
No. It is not required, just for you, for your understanding sake, how object is creating. As we are still discussing about container, how objects creates, right? So to show you that even if you have private constructor also, Spring will create object. Don't surprise if you see any existing application, whoever implemented, maybe your architect, for some reason, he implemented a private constructor. Still, if you see that your Spring is creating an object for that class, you should not surprise by looking into it. Yes, Spring will create object even if you have private constructor also. For Spring, nothing is private. Everything is accessible for Spring. So that is the one point that you need to remember. Okay.
So what pattern is being followed exactly? So is it like only one instance per bean is created by container, or is it
That's a
as
big
per the
discussion.
number of requests?
Yeah, that singleton prototype discussion we do while discussing about both the containers. Okay. I'll tell you why singleton is recommended, why not prototype. Okay. It's a design choice. Okay, depends on your application scope. We decide that we talk about.
Okay. Okay, how about recording, sir? Is it shared on daily basis? It's
As
my
this
first
is
session.
as this is also demo session, you will get this recording in YouTube. Demo link is there, right? Demo video link. There
Okay.
is a demo video link shared in the email. Open your email and see the previous emails. Follow-up mails you got, right? In the follow-up mails, you see demo videos. These are the videos that we discussed. These are the last 3 sessions which we discussed. 52 minutes, 1 hour, 35, 1 hour. Okay. These are our recordings only. Today recording also you'll get here. 4th recording. Up to 5 recordings you will get through YouTube. Thereafter you will get recordings in a separate mail. As a shared folder you will get.
Okay. What if we face any challenge during the setup or any practical example that we are doing? So do we discuss them over these sessions itself, or a separate session is planned for it?
Q&A, yeah, we spent post to this session, right? Whoever is having issues with the setup or with your program, you can stay in the class and you can connect with me until your issue is resolved. In case if I have any other assignments on that particular session, I will allocate you separate time. I'll share you separate link. There we can connect and discuss. As we all will communicate through our WhatsApp group, I'll create a group. There everyone will be added. So we can talk each other. I mean, if we have any issues,
Okay.
I'll be available.
Which version of IDE are you using?
The Eclipse 2019 06. You take any latest version. Okay. So for timing, what you need to have in your machine is you need to have Java runtime, install JDK, not runtime, install Java 8 or Java 9, install JDK and install MySQL or Oracle software, Eclipse, okay, to get started.
Sir, I am having XAMPP server. Through that only I am using MySQL.
What is that?
XAMPP server, sir. XAMPP server.
XAMPP server to run?
Yeah, to run MySQL server, and from that only I'm using that MySQL.
MySQL workbench, I heard. Is this the UI that for MySQL you're saying?
No, it's not the UI. It's a server which provides the SQL configurations.
Is it a cloud server you are saying?
Yeah, right. That.
Great. If you have, you can use it.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Yeah. Yes, cloud you can use. That is more flexible than the local one.
Right. We can use in application.properties also for that.
Sure. What we do, yeah, if that is open source, I'll show you the integration here also. Okay.
Okay, sir.
As finally, we need to adopt our application development to cloud only. We have to learn. Final topic is microservices, right? There we need to understand how to implement applications to cloud in cloud environments. Okay. Yeah. So that's all for today. I think we had a little lengthy discussion. Yeah, we'll shorten this discussion from tomorrow, and we are going to continue with the Spring discussions. This is the basic first session. There I want to show you how runtime class objects created, so that easily you will understand how Spring is doing the initialization part. Okay, so we are not going to have this much heavy sessions. Okay.
Can't we have it a bit early?
Bit early in the sense before 9.
Maybe 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock is too early for me. I am off from my work by 7. Then I'm taking my walking between 1 to 1.5 hours. Then coming to the session. So maybe that is a little early to me.
Okay.
So if you guys comfortable for the morning 7 a.m., you can join. There is a session going on.
So morning office would be there traveling.
At what time?
At 9 a.m. sir. So I travel.
Yeah, fine. That's why we are here for 9 o'clock, right? So if someone have the bandwidth, if they can able to join 7 a.m. also. Okay,
So
7 a.m. also session going.
morning, is it by different instructor?
No. I'm taking the same session. Morning
But
7
what I
a.m.
got to know that it's been a month now that
No,
morning session
actually
has run.
there are 8 topics that already we discussed it there. So if you can come to up to that speed, you can join there, because we have again 50 plus more sessions there. So you can usually cover up.
So how will I come to know what all things are covered and what all is left?
We have videos, right? We have every session recording available.
No, so let's say tomorrow morning if I try to attend one, at what time it is?
7 o'clock. 7
7
a.m. in the
o'clock. So
morning.
if I try to attend one session, will I get a demo link for it?
No. That's a regular link shared to
Mm-hmm.
group. There are 25 members joining in that group. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, for
And
time
that
being, continue here. Okay. What I will do after few discussions, right, where your topics and the 7 a.m. topics are um, overlapping, right? Where that point comes, then I'll tell you to join there. I'll share you the regular link.
okay.
Okay. Yeah. What will happen if we spend this much time, like 1.5 hour, 2 hours every day? Maybe for this batch, we might complete little earlier than the 7 a.m. batch. There also we are spending 1.5 hour time, but it's a morning, right? People sometimes join late, or sometimes I join late 5 or 10 minutes. Okay. For now, we will continue here on this session. Do you guys have any doubts?
Just one last thing. So I saw the course over website, and I think Spring Boot and microservices. So what percentage of courses is Spring Boot and microservices? I could see that the coverage is majorly for Spring Framework, not Spring Boot and microservices. Is that true?
No, we are going to cover all Spring Framework, Spring Boot, microservices.
Okay.
Starting with Spring Boot and microservices is easy for me. Okay, it is easy for me, but you will not get that in-depth knowledge of Spring. Even for Boot also, we are going to use the same Spring library only. So the internals you will not understand.
Okay.
That's the reason, with my special interest, what I'm doing, I'm adding Spring Framework discussions first, so that you will get in-depth knowledge internally how it is working, right? So that the customization for you is easy. If you want to do Spring Framework migration to Spring Boot, maybe for that things also it is easy for you how to convert the Spring Framework application to Spring Boot application, if you know about it, or else you might not aware that how you can migrate it. Correct?
Okay.
That is the not only reason. Very in-depth discussions we do to get the complete knowledge. And as I said, right, there are many design patterns also we discussed during our core and Jdbc other discussions. Yeah. Any doubts?
What if we miss session? So I have few leaves planned in the month of September first week.
You will get the recording as well as examples. You can go and see everyday recording on your comfort time, and you can come up with your doubts if you have any thereafter.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. That is how some people will do. Many working professionals are logging in, right? Few people will continue with the regular sessions. Few people, what they do during their free time, they will see the videos and they will ask me the questions. They will text me in the WhatsApp. Then I used to connect with them if they have any issues.
And what will be the validity of these recordings?
I think they will give lifetime. They must. They are saying like 6 months. They don't remove. I believe you will have like.
Okay.
You will have that drive link for lifetime access.
Okay. All right. Thank you so
Even if
much.
you miss that, you guys can reach out to me after 6 months.
Okay. Fine.
I'll give my private videos. Okay. Yeah. So that's all, guys. Okay. We'll meet tomorrow, same time.
Yep. Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Yeah. Good night.
Thank you.